With a surprising Darth Plagueis reveal in the Acolyte season finale, fans have gone into overdrive trying to figure out how it changes his established story and what still exists of it in current canon.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
The Acolyte show actually left us a ton of clues which point us in the right direction for that answer.
I thought not. It's not a story the Jedi would tell you.
Whilst also leaving a lot of potential for Plagueis to return and his story to be built upon in the future. So grab your lightsabers and buckle up as we venture deep into the dark side of the Force with one of the greatest Siths the galaxy's ever known.
It's a Sith legend.
Before we jump in, remember to leave a thumbs up on today's video if you enjoy it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to catch more of our Star Wars videos just like this one. Okay, so with all out of the way, let's get into the mystery of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Darth Plagueis was a dark lord of the Sith, so powerful and so wise, he could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians to create life.
To understand where Plagueis' story is at the time of the Acolyte and where it's going, we first need to take things back to a simpler time, a time where we thought it was all mapped out, with the show set at around 132 BBY. It was a popular belief that Plagueis would have been no more than 15 years old at the time, yet the Plagueis we saw on screen was a far cry from your typical rebellious youth spending way too much time in his cave playing video games. The timelines in Legends are blurry to say the least. Many of the events were never really set in stone. However, the truth of the matter is, Plagueis was always down as being born somewhere between 200 and 100 BBY, like I said, blurry. However, this would make him potentially as much as 68 years old at the time of the show. It is worth noting though, however, that the immune species don't age at the same rate humans do. They can live well into their hundreds, perhaps even 200, so Plagueis could be classed as still being a relatively young Mune. Anyways, born on Magito as Higo Damas II, the Dark Lord of the Sith would one day go on to mentor arguably the most powerful Sith the galaxy had never known in Darth Sidious, aka Sheev Palpatine. However, before then, he was trained in the ways of the dark side by his own master Darth Tenebrous, who he eventually overthrew and in turn took on the mantle of Sith Lord himself. Now, it wasn't long after that Plagueis discovered the existence of Darth Tenebrous' second secret apprentice, Darth Venomous. To cut a long story short here, Tenebrous recruited Venomous as his secret apprentice with the task of defeating Darth Plagueis. So he was already being betrayed by his master long before he decided to overthrow him. Venomous went to face Plagueis, but things didn't exactly go to plan, and Venomous ended up offering himself to Plagueis as his first official apprentice. However, Darth Plagueis had other plans. The Mune forced Venomous to drink a poison, which sounds kind of similar actually when you think of the Acolyte, which put him into a coma. Plagueis wanted to use Venomous's body as a test subject for his midichlorian experiments, which he did do over the course of many decades. Like pretty much all Sith, Plagueis, and just like his master Tenebrous, was obsessed with the potential to manipulate midichlorians. And after taking on Darth Sidious as his most well-known and final apprentice, the pair attempted something called the Grand Experiment, with the aim of creating life through the Force. However, even Plagueis himself deemed the experiment a failure. However, the attempt needed to happen in order for the events we witnessed in Star Wars movies to take place. You see, as a result of Plagueis' attempt to unnaturally bend the Force to his will, the Force itself answered back by bringing forth the prophecy of the Chosen One, through the birth of Anakin Skywalker in a bid to restore balance. And thanks to the Acolyte show, we now know a lot more about this now than we did before, which we'll come on to later. So we've pretty much got the outline of Plagueis' story there. If we included every detail, we'd be here for well over an hour. However, once Disney purchased Lucasfilm from George Lucas back in 2012, everything outside the first 6 movies and the Clone Wars TV show was branded as Star Wars Legends, meaning it wasn't a part of the official canon. And to be fair, before that, it was called the Expanded Universe, and George himself never really considered those stories as part of his own. Instead, he believed they took place in a separate universe entirely, a little bit like the multiverse concept. But this, of course, also included the Darth Plagueis novel, which was released literally months before the sale took place, which included the majority of Darth Plagueis' backstory that we know today. However, what this did do, which we're finally beginning to see take shape now, is it opened the opportunity for Plagueis' story to be reworked where needed and introduced into the official canon in live action. Plagueis himself still existed in canon due to Palpatine and Anakin's conversation about him in Revenge of the Sith, but not much more of his backstory made the cut. Now, Darth Plagueis' cameo in The Acolyte has certainly paved the way for many new stories to be told, but one of the biggest questions around his return is, how much will be introduced from the old tales?
He could use the Force to influence the midi-chlorians.
Throughout the entirety of the Acolyte show, hints of Darth Plagueis' story were there to be found, as well as enough breadcrumbs to surmise more storytelling on the horizon.
He had such a knowledge of the dark side.
In fact, it seems the entire show is geared up to tell the beginning of the Sith's journey to power, which ends with Darth Vader.
Is it possible to learn this power?
Bringing us forward 12 years, and yet it's taken an awful long time for them to touch on Darth Plagueis again. However, the release of The Acolyte also brought with it his live-action debut in the season finale. Although it was brief, there was something ominous seeing his sinister presence lurking within the cave. Even his short time on screen confirmed to us his species is still consistent with that of the expanded universe. Even that wasn't officially brought into canon until now, and it's also been revealed to us since then that Palpatine wasn't his only apprentice, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. Now, Plagueis' appearance in this cave on this planet overall doesn't seem to be a pure coincidence either, with this planet remarkably similar to the planet of Beldemnik from the Darth Plagueis novel, which is actually the planet Plagueis killed his master Darth Tenebrous on whilst they were mining for a rare metal called cortosis. You know the one, the same metal Chimere's helmet's made out of, and which we also see within his lair on the island. We already know Plagueis eventually dies at the hands of Darth Sidious around the time of The Phantom Menace before his introduction in the show, but what we didn't know is that he also had another apprentice before Palpatine. Now, you'd be forgiven in thinking Chimere, Plagueis' other apprentice, is fairly insignificant compared to his eventual replacement. However, this guy's far from being a stopgap. In fact, through Chimere, a lot is hinted at in regards to Plagueis' overall story, what already exists and what's still to come. Despite linking the Sith Lord to cortosis once again, and likely Beldemnik, which were two very important elements in his story within Legends, the Acolyte also revealed to us the existence of a coven of Force-sensitive witches that utilised the power of a Force Virgence on the planet of Brendok to create life, which resulted in the birth of the twins Osha and May. And although it's yet to be confirmed, it's heavily implied that they're actually a dyad in the Force. Now, whilst Plagueis is yet to have contact with them directly himself, as far as we know, the season finale revealed to us that his apprentice Chimere learned of their unnatural conception, which suggests he passed this information on to his master as Plagueis attempts similar experiments himself in the future. They're going to shape the entire story of the Skywalker saga as we know it. And with a little speculation here, if the twins are indeed a Force Dyad as hinted at, this could also be where Plagueis gained the knowledge of how to forge a Force Dyad between two beings in the first place. As we know, he attempted to establish one between himself and Palpatine in the future. The Jedi aren't yet aware of the power of the Force Dyad, which could explain why it wasn't picked up by them on Brendok. However, the Sith, on the other hand, are well aware of it. In fact, the Sith of old actually knew of a way to establish a Force Dyad between two beings long ago, but that knowledge had been lost over time, and it's this ability that Plagueis craves to bring back to the Sith's Book of Tricks. Darth Plagueis' return certainly had people talking, and whilst a large part of his story still sits within Legends, I don't think it's going to be long until we see it reintroduced into canon. We do know that Palpatine was his apprentice, and he had another apprentice called Chimere, who once was a student of the Jedi. He still has a connection to cortosis, it seems, potentially along with the planet Beldemnik as well. One aspect of the character that's never been in doubt was he had the knowledge to create life as well as save it. And it's this knowledge that likely came to him through Chimere's connection to the twins May and Osha. Without Plagueis gaining the knowledge he did, he wouldn't have attempted the grand experiment which resulted in the Force answering back and sending the Chosen One to balance the books. That would have happened hundreds, if not thousands of years later potentially, during another time where the balance of the Force is being tipped. Although the Acolyte show looks to be telling its own unique story away from the Skywalker saga, it's actually revealing to us much of Plagueis', which in turn goes on to set up the events that transpire in our favourite movies and beyond, even as far as the Bad Batch, where Palpatine's still searching for the power of immortality through cloning, an idea he would have picked up from his master. For all that the Acolyte gave us in terms of the Sith during the twilight of the High Republic, it's yet to reveal who the Sith Lord of this time actually is. Yes, Plagueis is Chimere's master, but we don't know if Tenebrous is still out there somewhere too. And Plagueis' recruitment of Chimere are his first steps towards overthrowing his own master, having his own apprentice waiting in the wings, having his own Acolyte waiting to ascend to the role of Sith apprentice. Just like we don't know if Tenebrous has already been killed. Perhaps the cave we saw Plagueis in was the cave where the murder took place, with Plagueis' appearance potentially happening moments after. Alright, that's a little bit fan-fiction-y to me, but it would be pretty cool. Plagueis doesn't look like a very young Mune. He's a little scarred and rough around the edges, which probably is hard to avoid when you potentially live in a cave, but I'd say he's already taken Tenebrous out, given that he does look like he's seen a little bit of conflict. But also, if they're going to veer towards Darth Tenebrous and Plagueis' relationship in future seasons, it might end up being a little bit too much and take too much away from the characters like Chimere, who they've tried to build up this season. But if Tenebrous has already been killed, then does that mean he's already killed the secret apprentice Darth Venomous as well? Or is that another rivalry we could potentially see unfold in the future? That's if he'll be brought into current canon, that is. Anyways, what are your thoughts on Darth Plagueis' involvement within the Acolyte show? And is there anything from his legend story you'd like to see brought into current canon? As always, remember to drop your thoughts, theories and wildest speculations down in the comments below. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe and keep it locked to the channel if you'd like to catch more of our Star Wars videos. With that being said, thanks for taking your time to watch this one. I'll catch you later. May the Force be with you.